Close your eyes for a moment and imagine. You're in an ordinary, perhaps routine day where the usual challenges continue to arise. However, something inexplicable begins to manifest. It's not visible, but it's undeniable. A profound feeling starts to take hold of your heart, peace you've never experienced before. A certainty that, even though problems still exist, something greater is in motion. What if I told you that this is God acting in your life? Often, we seek logical explanations for what happens to us, wanting to control every detail and understand it with our limited minds. But when God decides to act, He does so in a way that transcends human comprehension. He is not limited by circumstances or what we can see with our eyes. His actions are profound, silent, yet transformative. He begins to shape your inner self even before external circumstances change. When God acts, He does not do so merely in a temporary solution. He acts with purpose. Every difficulty you've faced, every tear you've shed, every time fear tried to dominate your heart, all of this starts to have meaning. God takes the broken pieces of your life and, like a craftsman, transforms them into something greater and more beautiful than you could imagine. But this process does not start on the outside. It begins within you. Suddenly, that anxiety, which once seemed uncontrollable, starts to lose its grip. The fear that used to paralyze you is now replaced by an inexplicable confidence. It's not that the problems have disappeared, they're still there, but something within you has changed. And that, my friend, is the sign that God is at work. In the next few minutes, we will explore how this transformation occurs. We will delve into the essence of what it means to have God acting in your life, from the small signs to the miracles that only faith can explain. And I invite you, from now on, open your heart to the unexpected, to the divine, and allow this narrative to perhaps become the beginning of your own journey of transformation. Because when God acts, He doesn't make a noise. He transforms from the inside out. Are you ready to understand how this happens? Let's dive deep into this truth, for it may be the change your soul has been yearning for. It is in this moment of inner transformation that something profound happens. You begin to encounter faith, but not the superficial faith tied to words or social conventions. We're talking about a living, pulsating faith that arises from within, often amidst pain, doubt, and uncertainty. It's like a small seed planted inside you, starting to sprout slowly, almost imperceptibly, but growing with each step you take towards God. This encounter with faith isn't something you seek merely with the mind. It is a deep experience, the spirit. Sometimes it is born from the depths of your despair, when it seems there is no way out. Other times, it emerges in a moment of silence, when you feel God's presence amid the chaos around you. Faith doesn't come as an explosion of emotion, but as a serene assurance that somehow everything will be okay. Not because you can control what is happening, but because you begin to understand that there is someone greater, guiding everything with perfection. As this faith develops, you realize it's not just blind or irrational belief. On the contrary, faith is a conviction rooted in real experiences with God. You start to notice small signs. An unexpectedly answered prayer, a word of comfort at just the right moment, an inexplicable peace even in the midst of storms. These are not coincidences. They are the first glimpses of how God is acting in your life. This encounter with faith is also the moment when you begin to realize that you are not alone. Faith leads you to recognize that, despite the struggles, there is an invisible hand supporting you, a plan in motion, even when you can't understand every detail. Over time, this faith not only brings comfort, it becomes the foundation of your life. You come to trust, not because things are easy, but because you know that, with God by your side, you have everything you need to overcome whatever comes. And as this faith starts to grow, it transforms the way you see the world. Your problems, once insurmountable, begin to turn into opportunities to see God's action. Closed doors, disappointments, everything starts to make sense in the light of faith. And when faith comes, it does not come alone. It brings with it hope, courage, and a new way of walking through life. And here is where true power begins to manifest. You not only believe that God is present, but you start to live based on that certainty. As your faith grows and takes root, something even deeper starts to happen. you begin to recognize God's presence in your life in ways that previously went unnoticed. It's no longer just about believing that He exists or is present in times of crisis. You start to notice His hands, guiding even the small details of your daily life, as if He were whispering in your heart, leading you to where you need to be. This divine presence manifests in subtle yet powerful ways. Sometimes it's that feeling of peace that envelops you during a difficult day, an inexplicable comfort that makes you stop and realize, God is here, with me. Other times, it's through people who cross your path, bringing words or gestures seem like direct answers to your prayers. That advice that arrives just in time, the hug that reminds you that you're not alone, the unexpected solution that appears when you are about to give up. These all start to be seen as signs of God's active presence in your life. Then, something extraordinary happens. You stop seeing the world as a random sequence of events. You begin to see purpose in everything, as if you were looking at a grand mosaic where each piece, each moment, is part of a larger plan. Encounters that once seemed casual now carry deep meaning. Difficulties become opportunities for growth, where God is refining your character, preparing you for something greater. Recognizing God's presence also means accepting that He doesn't act only in spectacular moments, but in daily details. That delay which seemed inconvenient but spared you from a bigger problem. That response you thought was slow but arrived at the perfect moment. Everything starts to take on a new perspective when you realize that God is orchestrating every movement with divine precision for your good. And this awareness of His presence transforms the way you live. Each new day ceases to be just a repetition of routines and obligations, and becomes a journey where you are side by side with the Creator. You become more attentive, more sensitive to His signs, and each day takes on a new radiance because you know that no matter where you are, God is there, guiding, protecting, and leading you in the right direction. This recognition changes everything. You no longer just believe, now you see. God is not a distant idea, but a real, constant presence that manifests in your everyday life. As you open up to God's presence and begin to recognize Him in every detail of your life, true inner transformation begins to take place. And this change is not superficial or quick, it is profound, occurring at the core of your being. God starts to shape your heart, your emotions, your thoughts. That anxiety that once dominated you, it begins to dissipate. Constant restlessness gives way to a peace that cannot be explained with words. It's not that problems disappear, they are still there, but the way you face them is completely different. This transformation is not the result of willpower or personal discipline. It is the gentle and continuous touch of God, gradually renewing your mind. Old patterns of thought, filled with doubt and fear, begin to be replaced by new convictions. You start to believe in possibilities that once seemed unattainable. You start to trust in promises you never dared to consider. And the most amazing thing? You realize that this transformation happens not by your own merit, but simply because God is working in you. There is also a change in how you deal with your emotion. Where there was once anger, frustration, or resentment, patience, understanding, and forgiveness begin to emerge. God, in His infinite wisdom, heals wounds you didn't even know were there, restoring parts of your soul that time and circumstances had wounded. This healing is often subtle, gradual, but real. You are surprised to find that situations which once deeply shook you now no longer have the same power over you. And then, suddenly, you begin to experience genuine joy. Not the fleeting joy based on external things, but an inner, solid joy comes from knowing that God is in control of everything. This joy is not dependent on circumstance. It flows from within, from the understanding that, regardless of what happens around you, there is a divine presence sustaining you, guiding you, transforming you. You start to live with lightness, not because problems have disappeared, but because something inside you has been transformed. This inner transformation is the true mark of God's action. He is not just changing your external circumstance. He is changing who you are. And when this change occurs, the world around you also begins to change because your perception shifts. You become more resilient, more confident, more filled with love. And this change, my friend, is the beginning of a one-way journey. where each step is guided by God's hand, and each inner transformation brings you closer to the purpose He has for you. With this inner transformation in full swing, you begin to perceive the immense power of prayer in your life. What was once perhaps just an occasional or formal practice now becomes one of the strongest pillars of your walk with God. Prayer ceases to be merely a plea for help in desperate times and becomes a constant, intimate dialogue with the Creator. You start to understand that when you pray, you are not just speaking into the void, you are connecting your heart to the heart of God. Prayer becomes your refuge, the place where you truly meet with God. As you pray, something happens within you. Your faith is renewed, your view of circumstances changes, and your spirit is strengthened. Prayer becomes that secret place where you can pour out all your anguish, share your joys, and above all, align yourself with divine purposes. Each word you utter in prayer becomes laden with meaning because you know you are being heard by someone who has the power to transform any situation. More than that, prayer begins to shape you. You realize that in praying, God not only responds to your needs, but also works on your heart. He adjusts your desires, shows you new perspectives, and gives you discernment to handle situations that once seemed confusing or unbearable. And often, God's answers do not come in the way you expected, but with a clarity that only prayer can provide. Then, prayer becomes a shield. In moments of greatest weakness, when fear or doubt threatens to overwhelm you, you turn to God in prayer and feel His peace descending upon you like a mantle. This peace does not come because the problems have disappeared, but because in the act of praying, you place your concerns in the hands of the one who can do all things. Prayer becomes your place of strength. It is the channel through which you experience the living presence of God, the place where His promises are reaffirmed in your heart. And gradually, you start to perceive something even more extraordinary. The more you pray, the more you feel that God is transforming you so that His answers manifest not only around you but within you. Prayer becomes a process of preparation, where God equips you to receive what He is already planning for your life. The simple act of praying becomes a lever for inner transformation, spiritual strengthening, and clarity to face the challenges ahead. At this point, you no longer see prayer as a duty but as a gift. It is the place where you rest in the presence of God and find the strength you need to continue. The power of prayer lies not only in the words spoken, but in the power of the one who hears you and acts through it. As you delve deeper into this journey of faith, prayer, and inner transformation, you begin to notice something extraordinary: miracles in your daily life. Previously, the word miracle seemed reserved for grand events, dramatic stories, and supernatural occurrences. Now, you see that God's action is in every detail, that miracles are part of the daily life of those who walk in His presence. It is not just about physical healings or spectacular interventions, but about small divine gestures that change the course of your circumstances and your heart. You start to notice these miracles in the simplest moments. It could be an unexpected solution to a problem that seemed unsolvable, door opening when all others were closed, or even the tranquility that floods your mind on a chaotic day. These are manifestations of God's hand, shaping your reality in ways that, often, you only realize in hindsight. And then you understand, God does not act only in extreme moments but in the smallest details. The job you thought was impossible to get appears. The reconciliation with someone that seemed unlikely happens. Even that traffic jam you avoided for some reason turns out to be a divine providence that spared you from something greater. These are small interactions, seemingly trivial decisions that become silent miracles, guided by God. The miracle is also in the transformation of your inner self. The fact that you face situations that once seemed to crush you with serenity, faith, and hope is a miracle in itself. The peace that invades your heart amidst storms, confidence that everything is under God's control, that is also the manifestation of the continuous miracle He is working within you. And the more you recognize these miracles, the more you open yourself to the supernatural. You begin to live with holy expectation, hoping that God will reveal Himself in every situation, big or small. When your vision is transformed by faith, you start to see life from a new perspective, where the impossible becomes possible, where God, in His love and power, surprises you in ways you could never have predicted. These everyday miracles not only bring joy and gratitude, but also reaffirm your trust in God. They are constant reminders that He is in control, that taking care of you in every aspect of your life, even in the simplest things. And as you recognize these small miracles, your faith is strengthened, and you begin to walk with even greater conviction that with God, nothing is impossible, even if the miracles manifest in the most mundane things. After all, living by faith means understanding that each day brings an opportunity for God to act. And when He acts, whether the miracle is big or small, the impact is always transformative. As you become more aware of the daily miracles and the constant presence of God in your life, you start to realize how faith also plays a crucial role in overcoming obstacles. It's not that challenges disappear. They simply gain a new perspective. Faith, now deeply rooted in your heart, becomes the strength that drives you to face adversity with renewed confidence. When obstacles arise, the difference is not in the absence of difficulty, but in the way you face them. You discover that faith gives you the courage to move forward, even when the path seems narrow and full of stones. Instead of feeling defeated, you find the strength to persevere, knowing that God is by your side, guiding each step, offering sustenance and hope. Faith allows you to see beyond immediate problems and perceive a greater purpose. That illness that seemed insurmountable, that unemployment that felt like a sentence, those personal conflicts that seemed endless, all become opportunities to experience God's faithfulness more profoundly. You start to understand that each obstacle is a chance to witness the greatness of God, see His hand working in ways you never imagined. Moreover, faith transforms fear into motivation. When you trust that God is in control, fear of the unknown doesn't paralyze you. Instead, it propels you to act with courage. You learn to face challenges with the assurance that even if things don't go as planned, God is working in your favor, and that every experience, whether good or bad, contributing to His perfect plan for your life. It is also through overcoming obstacles that you begin to perceive the transformative power of faith in your character. Each difficulty faced with faith molds you, strengthens you, and prepares you for future challenges. You become more resilient, wiser, and more confident in God's ability to provide and protect. What were once impassable mountains are now living testimonies of His faithfulness. Faith, therefore, is not just a comfort in difficult times. It is an active force that helps you overcome, grow, and thrive. Each obstacle you overcome is another step in your faith journey. Testimony to God's ability to turn seemingly impossible situations into glorious victories. And as you look back, you see a trail of triumphs and achievements, not just through your own strength, through the power of faith that moves mountains and brings light to darkness. So, by facing challenges with faith, you not only survive but also thrive. Each difficulty becomes an opportunity for growth and a testament to God's greatness. And with every obstacle overcome, your faith strengthens even more, preparing you for the next stages of the journey with unwavering confidence in God's power and faithfulness. As you navigate these obstacles with the strength of faith, you begin to realize that you are not alone on your journey. In fact, the Bible is full of testimonies and examples of people who faced immense challenges and witnessed God's work in remarkable ways. These stories are not just ancient accounts. They are living testimonies of how faith can transform lives and overcome the toughest adversities. Consider the story of Job. He faced devastating losses and profound suffering, but his unwavering faith in God sustained him. Despite his trials, Job never abandoned his trust in God, and in the end, he was restored and blessed even more. Job's story shows us that even in the midst of intense pain and loss, faithfulness to God can lead to abundant restoration and a deeper understanding of His goodness. Another powerful example is David. As a young shepherd, David faced the giant Goliath with a faith that seemed disproportionate to his size. He did not rely on his own strength, but on God's power. And by defeating Goliath, David not only gained a physical victory, but also a testimony that would inspire generations. His story is a reminder that with faith, even the greatest challenges can be overcome. And we cannot forget Daniel in the lion's den. Daniel was thrown into the den because he refused to abandon his faith in God. Even in such a dire situation, he trusted in God and was miraculously preserved. Daniel's experience demonstrates, when you remain faithful, even in the darkest moments, God is with you and can bring unexpected deliverance and protection. These biblical stories are more than just ancient narrative. They are concrete examples of how faith can work miracles and bring hope in the midst of difficulty. They serve as beacons of light, guiding you to understand that the same God who acted powerfully in the past is acting today in your life. Beyond biblical examples, you can also witness the same faithfulness in modern testimonies. People around you, or perhaps yourself, may share stories of how faith brought unexpected solutions, miraculous healings, or unforeseen directions. These testimonies, big and small, reaffirm the reality of God's power and encourage you to continue trusting in His promises. Each story, whether biblical or contemporary, is a testament to God's greatness and the effectiveness of faith. They are proof that the same God who worked in the past continues to work today, and that faith in God can bring about transformative and miraculous changes. Reflecting on these testimonies strengthens you, sheds new light on your own journey, and gives you the courage needed to face any challenge with renewed confidence in God's ability to act in your life. As you experience personal transformation and the power of faith, you also notice a change in how you interact with the world around you. Faith is not something that only transforms you. It also has the power to impact and influence those close to you. What starts as an internal change is reflected in your actions, attitudes, and relationships, creating waves of positive impact in the environment you live in. You begin to notice that the way you respond to situations and people changes. Patience, understanding, and love that now form part of your character influence how you relate to others. Your faith, which was once a private experience, starts to overflow into your daily actions, in how you handle challenges, and in how you offer support and encouragement to those around you. By demonstrating faith in action, you become a living example of God's transformative power. Your calm behavior amid storms, the hope you maintain when all seems lost, and the way you face difficulties with a positive attitude inspire those around you. They begin to see the reality of faith in you, and this can lead them to seek the same hope and peace you have found. The influence of faith can also manifest in your choices and how you contribute to the well-being of your community. When faith shapes your heart, you become more aware of the needs of others and more motivated to act in their benefit. Whether through acts of charity, emotional support, or actions that promote justice and kindness, faith drives you to make a difference in the world. Every gesture of love and compassion you demonstrate is a reflection of the transformation that has occurred within you, and a way to share God's light with others. Moreover, your faith can open doors for sharing your testimony. Conversations about what God has done in your life can serve as encouragement to those struggling with doubts or difficulty. Your testimony becomes a powerful tool to show how faith can bring hope and change, and it can inspire others to seek a deeper relationship with God. As you influence the world around you, you also begin to realize that your faith is fulfilling a greater purpose. Every interaction, every act of kindness, every word of encouragement is not just a response to your own experiences, but a way to collaborate with the divine plan, positively impact the lives of those around you. You become an extension of God's love and grace, carrying His presence beyond your own limits and reaching others with the same transformation you have experienced. Thus, faith not only transforms you, it reflects how you live and interact with the world. It becomes a dynamic force that not only shapes your life, but also illuminates and impacts the lives of those around you, fulfilling God's purpose of spreading His light and love beyond yourself. When your faith begins to manifest in the world around you, you start to reflect on the legacy you wish to leave. The faith that transformed your life and impacted those around you also has the potential to influence future generations. The legacy of faith is not just about what you do in the present, but about what endures after you are gone. It is the indelible mark you leave on the lives of people, your family, and your community. This legacy is built through the actions you take and the lessons you teach. You start to realize that every act of kindness, every word of encouragement, and every example of faith is a seed planted that can grow and bear fruit far beyond your time. The way you live out your faith, the stories you share, and the principles you value become a lasting testimony to the reality of God in your life. In your family, the legacy of faith may manifest in how you teach your children or grandchildren about the importance of trusting in God. The practices and values you pass on are not just momentary teachings, but a spiritual inheritance that can shape their lives and influence their own faith journeys. Your example of faith can serve as a solid foundation for them to also develop a deep and personal relationship with God. In your community, the legacy of faith is reflected in the changes you have helped to promote and the lives you have touched. Every act of service, every word of hope, and every support offered are part of a greater impact that continues to expand. Positive impact you have made can inspire others to act with the same faith and love, perpetuating a cycle of transformation and grace. And as you consider the legacy of your faith, you also reflect on the eternal impact. Faith is not just an earthly journey, it is a path that leads to an eternal purpose. The legacy of faith includes the hope of eternal life, the assurance that you are participating in something much greater than yourself. Every step you take in faith contributes to a story that transcends time and is part of God's eternal plan. The legacy of faith is therefore a tapestry of love, hope, and transformation that you weave throughout your life. It is a mark you leave not only in terms of actions and words, but in the way you experience God's presence and share that experience with others. In building this legacy, you not only live a transformed life, but also leave a lasting testimony to God's ability to impact and shape lives forever. And so your faith continues to resonate, inspire, and transform long after you are gone, perpetuating the impact of God in the world.